Isn't it always lovely when you wake up and you see yourself hale and hearty? I particularly appreciate that because a lot of times we wake up on the wrong side. Like today, I think I woke up on the wrong side, which is probably why I have a crack on my face, and asking me how I got it, and I'll explain later. That's because I refuse to get disciplined at some point in time in life. Well, I always have to pay back because I refuse to let the rod, form me the way it should have formed me, and then I got my payback today. What are we discussing? I already gave you a bit of it. It is discipline in our schools. It's going down the drain. A lot of times parents are complaining, my child is overbeaten. A lot of times too, teachers are complaining there is no more discipline the way it should be. I don't know why and where we're heading to, but then I know that I have a lot of people here who are particularly, either angered or vested in this topic to discuss. Let's quickly introduce ourselves.
My name is Devan. I'm at your mom, and it's great to be here.
Okay.
My name is Maimuna Omi Abdullah, aka Coach Didi, and have a good morning.
Okay. And I have a new face in the house. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good morning. This is Suru Olainka Gunfemi. Happy to be here.
Okay. I know you're in this teaching industry.
Yes.
A school head.
Yes.
Okay. You're going to do a lot of talking today. Before we go, let's look at this beautiful package put together by a winning team. They went out and asked people what their preference is for disciplining the children, and of course what their take is about school discipline. Let's see this.
I think that discipline is rather subjective, because whilst I may think that spanking a child is okay, somebody else may not believe that it is fine. But in my own opinion, I believe that disciplining a child should come in stages. So I believe you first talk to them, make them understand that this thing they are doing is wrong and they shouldn't do it next time. But when they don't listen, then you can proceed to punishment, just to show them that for every action there's a consequence.
I don't like beating children, so I feel like a teacher should reprimand that child and then also report that child to the parents. It helps that way, so the child will be cautioned in school and at home too, because when you beat children at times, sometimes they get used to the beating. So I feel like talking to them most times helps all the time, because you won't beat them for the rest of their lives.
For children to go outside and misbehave, it starts from home. So I think even both the parent and the teacher, they have their own role to play. And in school also, if a child misbehave, the teacher have to discipline he or she very well. And to my experience again, what is happening in this our society now, before, when we are in primary school, my dear, if we misbehave and our teacher beat us, none of your parents will follow you down to school to say you challenge the teacher with this. But now, this era now, what we are seeing now, even the teacher, they are even afraid of even touching children, because of, if they do that, the parent may kind of come to the school and challenge them.
I would say a school should get a policy whereby there should be, to an extent, a child will go, you flog. Other than that, give them punishment. There are better ways to make a child come back. When you give a child punishment like pick pin, kneel down, hands up, it tends to bring them, because that punishment is more stressful than flogging for me. When you punish a child, when they do something wrong, let the teachers have the power to be able to punish. Not some teachers command respect, but not all of them command that respect. So give the teachers policy that, okay, this should be a punishment. If a child misbehaves in class, then during our time, even if you make noise, you will be punished for making noise in class. Do you understand? So give them a policy, and with that policy, also share it to parents, so that parents will know you don't train your child by yourself.
I feel like adults should differentiate between, let's say, put incentives, like if they do something good, you reward them, and if they do something bad, maybe you take away the reward or you don't give them anything at all. Like, make them understand that, okay, what I did was wrong, that's why I'm not getting like so gift.
Well, my best take on discipline on children in schools are you sit the child down, you educate the child on what they have done wrong, why it is wrong, and then you let them know the right thing to do. You can't undermine the intelligence of a child. They might be silly, they might be playful, they might do things unintentionally, but it doesn't really mean that you have to instill punishment into a way of disciplining a child. You educate them on what they have done, and then you correct them.
All right, now we are back into the studio, and I want to ask, please, how many of you were not spanked growing up? My hand is down, actually.
I wasn't spanked.
You were not spanked?
At all?
Okay.
Never.
Really?
Never.
You missed the spare the rod business.
I was not spanked.
You know she was an only child, right?
No, that's not even the
Yeah.
thing. There
That
are
helped.
people who are still only
Don't
child and they
people.
still get.
Okay.
So there was no rod in your life.
No, I wasn't spanked.
Oh, wow. Were you beaten?
Auntie, how many times?
What about you?
Oh, sure. In fact, my mom used to call my dad father of king. My mom never spanked, but my dad, yes. I earned him such a title, father of king.
Ironically, my father never spanked. My mom did.
Anyway, I had it two ways. Whatever you did, if my mother gave you 6 strokes, just wait in the evening, you're going to get 12.
Ah.
The man, he has to double now. You know? But then, I always say, the spanking, was it the best? I am not sure. But then, looking at my life today, I couldn't have been, I don't know if I'm good, but I couldn't have been this good without those screamings, those caning, those, a whole lot of things I'm not sure I want to be able to share today. But basically, it was big time discipline. And it's coming from where your mother is a headmistress.
Ah.
So you commit crime in the school, you're spanked by your teacher, the headmistress, because she feels you're a child of a school administrator, you must also be very disciplined. So she has to give you extra. And then you go home, she tells your father, and you collect another extra. I always say it was luck that my skin is not broken, because we got a lot of caning and I was very troublesome. But then going back, I want to go to the teacher. Not beating children today. What other forms of discipline can we give?
Okay, thank you, Mom. And let me take it back from your own personal observation or experience. And in as much as you said you believe that the caning, the spanking is what has shaped you today, perhaps that's probably because you haven't also experienced the other side of what life would have been if you were spared the rod and other more positive discipline strategies were used on you. So let's take it back now to the present. A lot of time we believe that when we cane or flog children, it resets them. And I'd like to say that that's basically there are like 3 kind of responses you can have from that. There's some children that will comply as a result of the cane. Perhaps you're one of those, and they're like intimidated, like oh, because of this rod, I better set. And that is coming from a place of fear, not necessarily a place of good decision making. Any discipline that is not able to teach you to think and come from a place of positive decision to make informed decision on your behavior may not really be effective. Now, there are some other children that may resist or may even be outrightly vengeful as a result of the flogging.
Yeah.
And if we cast our mind back to when we're in school, I'm sure we can point out that child in the school system that was always being flogged, always called out during assembly, and even it became like the star child.
Yeah.
So like when you say, oh, this person has committed this crime, and everybody's like almost hailing him, and he just comes, collects the flogging, and like just
Then they bounce back. Yes.
yeah. So how effective has that been?
Yeah.
And like if I take that back to maybe our technology age today, you know, in those days when we had the typewriter, it seemed like the best thing that happened to secretaries.
Yeah.
But today we have the computer, and given the choice of working with a computer or a laptop and a typewriter, which will the secretary choose? And of course, what led to that invention is what research and a lot of maybe trial and error, and then bingo, we have it. And now today, from our devices, we can connect and do so many things. So back in the days, perhaps we felt, or our parents felt, that was what they knew. And don't forget that people do the best with the resources at their disposal. Yeah. But today, research has proved to us that whatever we focus on expands more. So what are you focused on in a child? Is it the positive or the negative? So if you are children by nature, we as a parent or teachers are very powerful people in the lives of children. It's like we hold a torch, and the children want that torch to be beamed on us, on them. And so whatever they do that gets them that attention, they repeat it for you. So what are we looking for in the behavior? Is it the positive or the negative? So if what you say is every time you're always disturbing, that's what you're going to get. But if when you say, you look around the classroom and you see that just one child is well behaved, and you look, oh, Adiola is so much, doing the right thing. She's so more focused on her learning. Her handwriting is so neat. Guess what? Other children in the class want to imitate that because they want that torch you're holding to shine on them. Unfortunately, when we don't do this and we use the negative punishment, the flogging, the whatever on these children, it builds up resentment either way. I remember when I was in primary school, for some reason I wasn't that child that was flogged in school, but I remember one particular incident when I was in primary 5, and our teacher asked us, normally after you finish your work, you pass in your note for your teacher to mark and sign and all. So I mean, some children would never turn in their work, and that in my class teacher was going to check through all the notes. And I remember there was one composition he gave us to write, and when I got home I practiced at the back of my notes, and then I transferred it to the normal part. Yes. And when I was doing that, of course, other ideas came in, and that composition became better than the one at the back. And maybe because of the class, my notes got to that part that I had written my draft, which I didn't say off. And my child saw it and flogged me for the first time that I didn't turn that in for marking. And I was trying to explain to him, and that built a lot of resentment in me, like, I know I do not deserve. See, there's nothing a child does that inflicting pain will be the solution. Discipline by its nature means teaching how to choose to make better decisions. It is teaching. It is discipleship. You have to teach. So when you have not taught a child and you're expecting that child to know, and I don't think that teaching is one way. That's why even in the scheme, there's lots of repetition. You do fractions in year 2, you meet it in year 3, you meet it in year 4. When you get to secondary, you're still doing fraction. There's a lot of repetition. So who gave us this idea that, once we say it once, then the children must comply, they must know? Let's not forget that our ages, and some of us are in our 40s, 50s, and some of these children are 6, 7. Our age is like times 7 of the age, and we expect them to reason, to have the thinking. The brain does not work like that.
We are not. What you're saying is it's quite correct, but a situation where a child is doing something that is wrong, that child knows that what he's doing is wrong. You've said it severally. Don't pilfer. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. And that child knows. How I know the child knows is when you're not around, the child goes to do it. Assuming you're working on such a child, you notice that they quickly withdraw and hide, or you ask them, they begin to lie. It means that they know what they're doing is wrong. For such a child, should I not raise the rod?
Well,
yes.
Well, not necessarily. I believe, you see, like Surya has just said, honestly, I had to unlearn caning or flogging my children as a way as a form of discipline, because I was just a normal mother. Because I was raised with the flog. My mother beat me, shaggy. Not so much, but I know I have been beaten so many times. So naturally, when I had my own children, I felt the easiest way to correct them is to beat them. Until I went into personal development and neuro-linguistic programming. So for me, we're human beings. We are born to make mistakes. And I think that's one of the best things I learned, and it changed everything. accepting that we can all make mistakes makes it easier for you to accept other people's mistakes. So if a child does things like the same thing you're not supposed to do, and I get you doing it, I'll give an example of my own kids. One day my son came into the sitting room and my office, I was working, and he looked really sad. And he was holding something behind his back. He said, Didi. I said, what is it? Didi, I'm sorry. I said, what is it? He was, I think, 15 years old. He said, Didi, I'm sorry. And then he showed me like a mug. When I became a coach, I got a mug for myself, Coach Didi, feeling cool with myself. I used to take my tea in it. And I love that cup. So the day he broke it, he was so afraid because I used to beat a lot. Then he said, I broke your Didi cup. I said, okay, please don't do it next time. Were you hurt? He said, no. I said, okay, be careful next time. He said, huh?
Was that all?
He said, that's it? I said, yes, be careful. He said, that's it, Didi? I said, yes. Believe me, he dropped the cup. He held me up because he was much bigger than me. He hugged me tight. And then he whispered in my ears, thank you, Didi. Believe me, I wept. I cried because I had been so used to disciplining them with beating them that everything they did, they were afraid I would beat them. So the minute I started on learning it and changing the way I was raising them, I had conversations more. And believe me, I saw the difference. Because like she said, they became defiant. Because my first two kids are boys. So by the time they were 15, 16, 17, they were really big. So even when I hit them, said my hand used to ache myself. So believe me, no, I believe really, with the school systems, what they're doing now, though sometimes they're excessive, beating is not the answer. No matter how somebody is doing something wrong, conversations really help. I ask you, why did you do that? Because our parents never asked us why we did it. They just beat us, Shigi.
Have you ever heard a child who says, go and report me to mommy, or go and report me to daddy?
Yes.
After all, they'll just ask me, why did you do it? And I say, sorry, I won't do it again. So
Yes,
would
I heard that.
So would I not hit such a child?
No, still you don't have to hit. But if the child says that, then you ask, why do you think so? Why do you believe that I will do it again? It's all about you see, like she said, we need to get the kids to think. And most importantly, I started a reward system. It works. I have it's like a paper on the door in the kitchen. There's a reward system. If you're able to do your chores without me prompting you and do it correctly, you get a point. And at the end of the week, the person with the highest point, I take them to ShopRite. And you pick something within reason. I tell them, have sense, please, have sense, within reason. And believe me, it became a competition. So everyone wanted to have the highest scores at the end of the week. So it also helped me. I taught less.
That's motivation.
Yes.
And of course, it comes with reward.
Yeah.
But I still want to hear from Devan. I mean, you were not spanked as a kid. You were probably shouted at. And I recall you always say it was worse than the beating. Do we really need to remove, I won't call it capital punishment. Do we need to remove
I think you mean
physical
corporal
punishment, on children, because we want to be more democratic in our parenting and teaching?
Okay, for somebody who didn't get spanked, I think I have a very different view. That people will be like, what is this one we're talking about? I think that, first of all, I think we're using these terms interchangeably. We're using beating and spanking interchangeably, and they're two different things. Spanking is much lighter, much lighter. I believe in spanking for much younger children, like toddlers. They'll push your boundaries. A toddler will be doing something they know is wrong, and they'll be looking at your face to see if you are going to react. And have you seen babies doing that? And you're there shouting, Peter, move from that place, I will beat you. They never move. They go right ahead and finish doing what they wanted to do, and even repeat it. So for that one, I do favor hitting your hand or giving you a few taps on the bum, things like that. Yes, I'm okay with that. But you see, this thing they call beating, I don't agree with it. I think that it can generate, what do you say, defiance.
Yeah, it does.
In many instances, it can generate defiance, resentment. If you are really unlucky, dislike, or even outright hatred. Because I think that sometimes parents who administer beatings do it more from a place of frustration and pent-up emotional tension that might not be in consonance with the wrong that this child has done.
Yeah.
I have never been able to understand why a parent would beat a child who was washing a plate or a cup, and then it slipped and gets smashed. In Hausa language, these things are called fadikamutu.
What does that mean?
Fall down and die.
And break.
You understand?
Yeah.
It's designed already.
It's designed to break. It will break. And then
the caning may not be because you broke that thing. The caning may be because you were careless.
Yes, sometimes kids are careless.
Because I believe that's what happened to me.
I'm going
I used
somewhere
to
with
be
this.
I'll be washing my plates. I'll be singing and I'll be dreaming. And then before I know it, I lose control of what I'm holding and it breaks.
Now, what age is this child? I believe I think we can all agree that soap would ordinarily make most things much more slippery than they ordinarily are. Now, in many homes, we try to get children to start washing small things from like the age of 5, 6, 7, thereabout. Their grip is not that good. You have to make room for the fact that things will get broken.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world.
Absolutely.
These things are replaceable. As long as the child was not being intentionally careless, we need to be able to differentiate between carelessness and mistakes.
Yeah.
For instance, my parents were not the beating type, like I said, but my mom would yell at you. She would really, like lay it into you and everything. And, because of that, and I really didn't like it, and to be frank, I think it was counterproductive. Because I was the kind of person you could talk to and get results out of, which was my father's parenting style. My father would just sit me down and talk to me, and that was it. Whatever it was I did would never happen again. But she was more old-fashioned, so she would go in with the, yelling and all of that. Till date, there's nothing you will break in my house, no matter how old you are, that will get a rise out of me. The point where you might get something,
you buy it too.
No, the point where you might get a rise out of me is you break and hide it, and I have to find out when I want to use it, and I didn't even know there was an issue. But I'm not scolding you because it got broken. I'm scolding you for lying by hiding something from you. So you break a plate, in fact, all my plates now have, it's like there's somebody in the house that just chips up plates. And almost all my plates have these marks, and then I'm like, guys, what is it? You guys don't want me to bring home polite company anymore. Why do all really nice plates, they all have a small break? What's a small chip in the corner? What's the problem? But I don't like lose it and yell and lose my peace, and everybody that enters the house gets to hear how Mark broke a plate. And no, I don't do that. I just don't do that. I can't. It's not that deep. That's what I always tell myself. It's really not that deep.
It's not that deep.
It's not that deep. It can be replaced.
Yeah, it can be.
It's not an antique that we obtained 100 years ago. We bought this thing in the market.
It does happen.
Exactly. We bought this thing in the market 2 years ago. If this particular design no day again, the one we find past this one day, and we buy it. It's not that deep.
Okay, you are going to add something to
and I would like to add that, you see, not flogging children or beating them or spanking them does not mean allowing children to go overboard on the whims and do anything, and then they can just get away by coming to say, I'm sorry. You see, there is a strategy and there is a how. And just like you will need to learn, if you want to be a chartered accountant today, you need to learn and beyond the 4 walls of what you were taught in accounting school, university, and go and sit for ICANN or ACCA or something to be better. Parenting, you need to be trained. You can't assume it. And so we're not saying that for children.
There's a school for parenting.
Oh, sure. You can't say
I didn't know that.
You can't just say,
I train it.
Okay, so now because we're told not to flog, and then the children, when they come and say, just like what you said, or go and report, but just say sorry. There has to be consequences. There are so many other tools that you can use for them, and just one of them is consequences. So even when it was a genuine mistake, it's a mistake, but children need to learn how to repair their mistakes. It's where they learn responsibility. So there are lots of higher values we need to teach children, which we were not taught. Lots of us are not disciplined. We don't have self-discipline. We don't have confidence in ourselves, because some ways along the line when we're being trained or during our upbringing, these things were squashed. We're not paying attention. All we have is fear. You're afraid to make a point. You're afraid to stand up for your right. You're afraid to say what you believe in. They're so well governed by fear. But when there is a consequence in place, for example, as one of the tools you can use, so okay, I understand it's a genuine mistake, but how do you repair this mistake? Does it mean that, oh, this plate you have broken is you know, yeah, I check. How can we replace it? Does it mean that maybe there's an allowance system in the home or children get gifts? Okay, so a certain percentage of your allowance will be, so maybe I'm going to put down 50%, you're going to put down 50%, or you're going to take 100% something. Children need to learn taking charge and be responsible. Flogging does not teach responsibility and accountability, and that's self-discipline. It's just like to inflict the pain, and we believe that once that pain has been inflicted in children, then the mistake is over. So children doesn't really learn anything from that, and then that's why that cycle repeats itself, and the child keeps on making the same mistake because it's like, oh, I'll just apologize and get away. And on the other hand, it's like Kojidi said, you need to understand why. So like I have a child, a 4-year-old, and he's used to drinking with his left hand. He does everything with his right hand. When it comes to drinking, unconsciously he uses his left hand. You know, and each time I'm like, use your right hand. And then I asked him, I'm like, why do you always, he said he does not know the difference between his right and left hand. And this is a function of the brain. So imagine if each time he took the cup or bottle in his left hand, I spanked him. I said, so I had to tell him, I said, you know what you do? What hand you used to, the hand you used to write is your right hand. So each time you pick the bottle or you want to pick, think which is my right hand and know that that's the hand to use.
Why does he get spanked for using his left hand to drink anything? I'm confused. Is it a cultural value?
Yeah. So for me, being a Muslim, my Islamic values, you don't use that left hand to put anything in your mouth, right? So I want to train that child in line with that. So even if you're left-handed by writing, when it comes to putting anything in your mouth, you need to learn to use your right hand to do that.
Okay, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, thank you. So
I can write with the left.
You can write with
I can do anything you can do, but when it comes to eating,
I must use my right. You need to learn to use your right hand. So he does everything. He's a right-sided child. He does everything. But when it comes to job, he eats with the right. But when it comes to drinking, so I had to tell him, okay, anytime you want to put that cup in your mouth or whatever, just think which is the hand I used to write and then transfer. Does that mean that he was going to get it immediately? No. Parenting is in the training.
Yes.
You need to train and train until that aha moment. And that's why even though Kojiji talked about reward system, you see there is an internal motivation in children that just suffices. That aha moment that yes, I did it. Even when without a physical reward. That thing that yes, it's that that joy of doing. We don't want to squash it with attaching things to material things. And that's why most of us today are in jobs we absolutely dislike because we're just there for the reward. Oh, well, pay the paycheck. But I know people that, well, even when they defy that paycheck, stepped out, they disciplined themselves, and today they're living their life.
Okay, now beyond the reward system, I'd like to know, because from everybody's speech here, I believe that we're all saying no to spanking, at least to a certain extent, especially beating. Okay, so we don't want to be beaten, and we don't want to beat either. What are the other ways we can instill discipline in people? Because the whole idea is discipline, and discipline does not begin and end with a cane. So what are the other ways?
Punishments.
Okay.
Punishments. So punishments, yeah, punishments.
Punishments.
Like for me, like you said, I used to catch your ears.
Yeah.
When you're really, really defiant, that's my peak. You catch your ears.
I'll just stand up and catch my ears.
No. You put until you bend down and put your hands under your knees. You didn't do it in secondary school?
No, I didn't.
My sister, it's painful.
Are you serious?
Yes, because I have boys. My older kids are boys. So when they started growing bigger than me, they started thinking I could not talk to them. So I needed to make it a reproach. When they are really, really defiant, that's the punishment. But
so you bend down,
put your hands underneath your legs, and then you hold your ears. Wow. My sister is not easy.
Every
muscle in your body will be aching.
I also believe that punishment
crunching for
in this climb, right? We use punishment and discipline interchangeably.
Yeah.
Okay. And the aim of punishment is to inflict pain. And I still maintain that there's nothing children do that calls for instilling pain. They are there to learn. We are meant to teach. So we need to start from a place of raising valued and principled children. So for example, so you tell your child to pick his ears or whatever, it gets to a state that child will look in there and be like, oh boy, and then what is that child learning? It still goes back to either being compliant or being different at the end of the day. You want to look at a situation where You know, you can call a child, right, and let them understand this thing you have done. This is a precaution, and it starts from having a value system in the home. Or you are a member of the DD clan, and you know that in this thing, these are not allowed.
Can I cut you?
So it means that
Look, I am being realistic here. We have kids. I have conversations with my kids, but kids are still kids. Since I made a decision I was not going to beat until there has to be some kind of punishment, and for me that worked. They didn't like it because it's quite painful, and after that you apologize. I'm sorry for what I did, and then we have a conversation again. So you know why I punished you, because I will tell you now why I had to do that.
But
Because
I would like to believe that, you see, either flogging or the punishment, they're in the same category. It's still one object, because the person that is flogging is also doing that so that that child can have a change in behavior, right?
Yes.
And the only thing is that what I'm saying here is this, whether it's flogging or through those punishments, it's still inflicting pain. And that's why, you know, it confuses
they must have some pain in life.
No, what are we trying to say is, why are we scared of pain? Because the process of even giving birth
it's painful.
on its own is very painful, and it's God inflicting it.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we are happy with the product, which is our child.
So let me ask
So then the process of going to school, I recall when my daughter came in from school sometime when she was in primary school, and we were all sitting down and watching TV. She came upstairs and was like, you people are here enjoying yourself, and me, I was suffering in school. So for her, going to school was painful. So studying and being a human being, the correct human being, is not exactly not without pain. So little pains that actually get you to the right
part of life. Pain is part of life.
I think it's not bad.
If I may come in here as somebody who came from, you know, one of those, nobody ever struck me. I'm sorry, but I mean, like, seriously, and I was always like the model, you know, pupil or student, you know, always teacher's pet, so I didn't get beaten up in school by my teachers either, you know. But you would think that because my parents weren't, you know, hitting me at home, not spanking me or beating me or so, you think that I would be like really naughty and, you know, heady. No, I wasn't. Somehow my parents were able to use words. But then again, that was a very small family. I mean, like, they might not have been able to use the same approach if we were like 5 or 6. But it was just me. So they were able to talk me out of my bad behaviors, which you know, and to be honest, my father had a more success with that than my mom did, because she would scold and he would reason with me. At a point, I became a very consummate liar in the house because I hated being scolded. So if my mom asked me something, I would lie to her immediately.
Thank you.
To avoid being scolded. If my dad asked me, I'll tell him the truth. Why? My dad would sit me down and talk me through why that lie was a stupid idea. It's okay. Now, do you know why this thing you just said doesn't work? I'll be like, no, it's okay. This. So the minute you said it, I knew you were telling a lie. And when you tell a lie, it makes you look bad. It makes you look stupid. Do you want to look stupid? No. So what do? You tell the truth, right? Yes. So what actually happened? And, you know, I tell him the truth, and he'll be like, okay, I get it. You didn't want to do this because this, and this, right? Yes. And you did this because this, yes. Okay. Can we agree that going forward, if this happens, you will do this, and this? Yes.
Okay.
Simple. Now, hang on. That worked with me. Maybe because, who knows, maybe I'm ordinarily a compliant kid or what, I don't know, but it worked. My teachers from primary school through secondary school, university, never had a problem with one teacher. And it wasn't pretense. I knew how, because it was drummed into me that you don't disrespect somebody if they're 1 month older than you. You're not doing it in this house and you're not doing it outside. So once I left the house, children in older classes, respect. Teachers, respect. The cleaner in the school, respect. But you know who suffered at my hands? My peers. I was naughty. I was mischievous. I was the kind of person that would play pranks, but with my peers. I didn't do that around adults, not because I was pretending, but because there was a clear demarcation in my mind on who it was okay to disrespect and who it was okay to not be disrespectful to. And I think it worked. And because it worked for me, I cannot recall ever striking a child. I just don't. I don't know where to even start. Why am I going to hit you? Even the one that I say I favor, I don't do it. I wouldn't mind. I think I wouldn't mind, but I've never done it. You know, I want to sit you, even with their small age. If you talk to a child, you can understand the silly logic they used to do the thing they did, and then you try to talk. It worked for me.
I think it's also easier because, you see, life is about patterns and learned behavior.
Yeah.
For some of us, you were not spanked, so maybe it was easier for you because you don't even know how to spank. But we were spanked. When we did something wrong, we were spanked. So naturally, when you begin to have children, you also get, that's life.
And spanking, you actually learned from it. So what you learned and you benefited from it.
You think your child will
let me say
learn
something, right? You see, let's compare Indomie. My son was still asking me, Mom, why do you say Indomie is not good?
Noodles.
Yes, noodles generally. Yeah. Noodles is like fast meal. Can you compare noodles or even fast food to going to sit in a restaurant and waiting on your meal and having wholesome meal? That's what this, pick your ears and you think the child has learned a lesson. We want quick fixes. And behavior does not change by quick fixes. Like what you said, you know, in your presence, I may know not to do this, or I may pretend, you make a lie out of me because I want to look good. But we are talking about something that is more lasting. And that's where values come in. You must teach your children based on principles that these are this and that. And when they define, let me give an example. When my daughter, she's in university now, when she was in primary school, consistently in the morning it was a nag. And then I just, to get ready and all. And then I said to her one day, so like we had a carpooling system, there was then a friend who was a teacher in the school. So my children were in like 2 different schools. So this friend was a teacher in, let me call them batch A and batch B children. So this auntie was a teacher in batch A children's school. So, and then she had her own children in batch B children's school. So the carpooling was so that in the morning she would drop her kids with me. I take them to the batch B school. Then she picks my own batch A children and go to school with them. By the time she called, my daughter is not ready. So she will go and then I'll have to still do 2 school runs. Go to batch A school and go to batch B. Then one day I had to borrow myself since. I called all of them. I said, see, next time this auntie comes and you're not ready, whoever is not ready that day is not going to school. I could have even told her to pick her ears or beat her or anything. And, you know, they didn't understand.
That's punishment on his own, too.
And no, it's the language. You see,
they're very happy not to go to school.
What?
Yes.
They're happy not to go to school. So
let me, I'm going to tell you the story. So at the end of the day, that happened, and you know, I didn't even say anything. She got outside in the morning, the car had gone. I said, oh, so they go. I said, yes. So what do you want to be in the house? She said, my room. I said, okay, no problem. And then I got her worksheet, stuff to do and all, and then, you know, the day went. And then in the afternoon, I went to pick the batch A children. My son was like, normally I'll pick him, then go to her class. And he was like, oh, are we not picking Zainab? I said, no, Zainab didn't come to school. And I could see that mischievous. I said, oh, how funny to be not to come to school. I didn't say a word. Then we got home. And then usually when they get home, they do their homework and all. Then the evening, all the children come out with the bicycles and generally play. And when it was time to go out, I said, no, you're not going. It's all children that have gone to school that will have the liberty to do this. At that point, she broke down and cried and cried and cried. At that time, in my house, we had only 1 bathroom. If somebody is in the bathroom, Zainab is eating or doing something, that was the end of lateness. The children for life, she has learned a lesson for life.
But we'll just take a quick break now. When we come back, you'll pick up from where you stopped. At least Zainab still got punishment. Yeah. She didn't ride her bicycle. Are you ready? Let's take this break.
Years passed. All I wanted was to leave now.
Going on. Them and saying that pain they are giving to us, let's give it back to them.
I didn't get the pain. No. That's like from my parents, I didn't get it. Yeah. But and as a result, maybe I don't know how to give it. But the fact that I don't know how to give it doesn't mean that I don't believe that parents who can give it should not. It depends on, you know, some kids they have this thing, especially in their teenage,
Entitlement
where they feel like they have two heads.
Yes.
Somebody will have one stubbornness that came straight out of Harvard, you know, and all these kinds of things. We are not saints. We are human beings. Yeah? It's so wonderful to be able to sit here and talk about, oh, whatever your child does, just talk to the child. And some children are determined to make you look like you are like there's something wrong in the home, when actually there isn't, because their siblings are turning out okay. So what's wrong with this one? If something is not nailed down, you are stealing it. Meanwhile, you have everything you need, except the one we are not aware of. You lie. You are the same person refusing to do homework. You are the person who fails every exam and everything. There are these kids that you try so hard to look for sunshine and light around them, and you can't find it. So every now and then, if a parent loses it and decides to strike you, I'm fine. The fact that I don't know how to do it doesn't mean that another person shouldn't.
But beyond striking or beating, what are the other ways? You know, I believe that punishment should be given to children, like you said, after dialogue. They must know the gravity of what they've done. And then, if possible, we should also give them options of choosing the punishment. So what are the other ways we can discipline? Okay, you don't want the word punishment. Okay, what are the other ways?
The consequences of their actions.
Make them understand the consequences of the action.
Okay, so like I like what you said now. Every behavior must have a consequence, whether it's positive or negative. And most of the time, we believe that when we say in quote, don't punish children, we're saying let them get away with their negative behavior. No, what we're saying is children, so the consequence needs to be like related to what the child is doing. So let me give you an example. I have a daughter who is in medical school, and then she, you know, will I say, made a mistake. Well, she failed some courses. So naturally, some privileges have to go. Yes. So if the cost of that year in medical school is £2,000 and your accommodation is £2,000, perhaps you will need to pay for the cost of your course, and they have to get an accommodation that will be almost negligible. You know, so these are ways that children will know that, see, you know, most of the time what we think we should do is, you know, once you have flogged the child has learned. The child does not learn from this thing. The child needs to do the time, do the work. So I'm not saying don't give that child consequences. I'm saying that consequence needs to be related. And I'm trying to see how a child that is lying or pilfering, picking your ears or something, solve the problem. You may actually need to have a conversation with the child and say like, look, what are the boundaries? These are the boundaries in this home. And when you go beyond this boundary, these are the consequences, these are the things that will happen. And by all means, be consistent to what you say. So you must say what you mean and mean what you say. Because children know, it's not about coming to say, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. You don't want to like rescue your child, and because they have apologized, oh yeah, I understand that you're sorry, but you still need to go through the consequence. So really, it's all about administering the right consequence, setting the boundaries, being clear of what we want. And do you know that when we pay attention to more positive, right, all these misbehaviors we're talking about, you will hardly see them. I have a dozen children, and I'm sure that my life is not hell. I'm enjoying my parenting journey. Because
you say you have a dozen children.
Well, the parents I parents in school. There are children that have come to school. The parents are like, beat them, did that. I think the children have been able to focus more, sit still, and learn better. Why? Because of, you know, like during this holiday, my daughter was home with a friend's daughter, and I told them to make some researches on social interaction and what's the other topic. You know, when they learn themselves, they see, or let me give you the example of drug, for example. Are you going to wait till your child tries that drug before you start running helter skelter? You don't go on YouTube, watch the videos of people that have gone on that route and how it has happened to them. So it's about the decision they make before that. That way, you have less misbehavior to deal with. And you see, we need to understand one thing, this parenting thing, it is about us first, not the child. So you see that the child is driving me this, is driving me this. The child does learn. Our children can never be the same. We need to understand how each one of them is different from the other. How does this child learn? Because if you don't understand how I learn, if you don't understand the way I receive love, the way I interpret love, you may just be making a mess of my life thinking that you're parenting me.
Okay, you know what, you just said something that got me thinking as part of the conversation I had some time ago with Devon. I think you're also involved about how teachers, you know, instill discipline. I'm trying to make sure I use the right language, or show you consequences, and parents come back to berate on the teachers. I don't know, you've had that incident, you mentioned.
Yeah, I want to talk about this because it happened a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Somebody, a close family friend, told me of, how a parent was so irate that it was a mother, incidentally. She was so irate that her child got, I think, spanked, in school. Now, this child did not receive that kind of beating where you end up with welts and a broken arm or anything. It was what we would say conventional beating. There was nothing spectacular about it, administered by the head teacher. Now, the truth is, I know there are wicked people and there will be wicked teachers too. But I think that for a head teacher to have done that, possibly it was in response to something the child did wrong, broke school regulations or whatever. Now, maybe the mother is this kind of person who also doesn't beat her children at home, whatever. She came to school with thugs.
With thugs?
Yes, with thugs.
The parents came with thugs?
Yes.
Wow.
Whether thugs or whether the police, I don't know. But she came with an array of people, got a hold of this head teacher, and from the version of the story I got was the man was really profusely apologizing. He's sorry and all. First of all, it's humiliating. But second of all, she didn't listen. She proceeded to physically assault the man, which he did not respond to. He didn't lash back out at her. She physically assaulted the man, had him removed from the school premises, took him to the police station. And I don't know what happened at the police station, but it turns out that this man had BP issues. So he ended up collapsing in the custody of the police and subsequently died. Subsequently died. Yeah. I'm not a lawyer, but at the very least, that qualifies as some kind of manslaughter kind of thing, if it were ever to go to court. And if I'm that man's wife, that's if he has a wife or family, I am definitely suing. I'm definitely suing. Because you have to tell me the terrible thing that happened to your child that had to lead to...
And you see why some of these things are linked and why the circle keeps repeating itself?
And there's the other story of one big man in Nigeria who went to a school, similar circumstances, brought, I think, policemen, carried the head teacher, put him in the boot, drove off the premises.
Yeah, I had that.
At the very least, that's abduction or kidnapping.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm sure
these are common things, really.
So, I don't get where parents are coming from with this whole thing of the sun doesn't shine out of your child.
When your child goes to school, the whole idea is to learn. And if it's in the university, they say this child has gone through academic and the school has also gone through him, so to speak, when you get a certificate. But let's see if we can speak with our audience. Just 1 minute. Okay. To me, spanking a child shouldn't be a bad thing. Western life is different from ours. The real African mama is the mama that corrects her child through the rights, through that rights. Okay, beats no they kill. Beating no they kill. This is from Ocheme, from Katsina, and several other people are writing. Beating no they kill. So we don't. Okay, somebody is telling me that he couldn't watch to the end. They were taking their light. Sorry, that's NEPA dealing with you. All right. The other person said, please let's us go back to the way things used to be, because when you cane children, their head gets reset. We're almost out of time, but as a teacher, just 1 minute, perhaps you tell us, what is it like for you when a child is disciplined and a parent comes to, throw weights, either because he's a big man or a big woman?
Well, unfortunately, I've never had to experience that. In fact, we usually hear the opposite, right? And then where it happens, it's just a reflection of this thing we're saying. We're saying beating doesn't kill, and that they should flog. So yeah, a parent has the right to flog, so flog my flog it back. That tells you that this method of discipline does not correct anything. It's a vicious circle. It just promotes violence and tells me that, okay, if I have more power, I can intimidate you to submission and coerce you. And that's why people take this into marriages, and then they end up being abusive marriages. That's why continue to come and say, oh, mental health. These are the underlying issues that if we don't go to the root and find more positive ways to inflict discipline in the lives of
my director is on my neck that we should go. The way my mom beats me up till now, I am still trying to recover from it. My name is Slim Brass. Okay, please, mommy, don't beat again.
Don't beat too much.
We'll come here again next week. Until then, whatever whatever is the right thing to do it and avoid unnecessary punishment or consequences, right?
Consequences.
You must give consequences all the time.
Bye-bye.